I came up in a culture, which is still pretty prevalent today, that, yeah, we suck it up and we keep moving on. We believe that we have to be the problem solvers for everything because we're going to these calls every day. But when we don't understand what's happening, inside of us and how that training can affect us, then we feel, well, I have to fix myself. I can't ask for help because then it's a sign of weakness.
You can do this job and be healthy in it.
People can actually grow as a result of their struggle.
This podcast shares real stories of transformation and explores what it means to live well through life's challenges.
Welcome to the Struggle Well podcast. I'm your host, Britt Myers, and today I'm so excited to be sitting here with Travis Gribble. He is a Warrior PATHH guide and retired law enforcement officer, so super stoked to have you. Grateful that you're able to lend your time to this podcast this morning.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. PATHH guide for Boulder, Crest. I currently work for mobile training team Alpha, mostly based out of Texas is where we do our programs, but the mobile teams have the ability to travel across the country to go to different locations if need be, and we do that sometimes.
That's awesome. What brought you into this work? How long have you been with Boulder Crest?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. So in 2024, I had been linked up with Joe Wood, Boulder Crest, and through one of my former SWAT lieutenants, and I was kind of doing my own thing for advocacy for veterans and first responders and doing some speaking, et cetera. And I got linked up to them just to honestly have a conversation, just see like, hey, where's everybody going? I had briefly heard about Boulder Crest because Mesa Police Department, where I retired from in Arizona, they had adopted the Struggle Well program. And so I had briefly heard about it, but it happened after I had retired. Mm-hmm. So I was invited by Joe to come to what at that time was called the Struggle Well experience, which was for first responders only at that time, but it now has been merged in, and it is essentially what Warrior PATHH is today. Okay. And so I went as a student, and after the program, it was, not to sound cliche because it does, but it was life-changing. So I wanted to know how I could get involved with Boulder Crest. And so my first path was to go through training, being a Struggle Well guide. So I was working on Arizona, and then an opportunity came up to, in 2025, be a part of the Struggle Well Experience program, which as a guide, and worked through that all of last year. And then this year I transferred over to the mobile training team Alpha. So that's how I ended up here.
Quite the story, which we can dive in a little bit more on that. But I definitely want to give some background too into your career of service. Yeah. And you're a Michigan guy, which as an Ohio girl, I'm going to forgive for this conversation. But take me back, rewind a little bit to growing up in Michigan and maybe some early inspiration you had that kind of led you on this track towards becoming a law enforcement officer.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up in Michigan, like you said, in the Lansing area, which is the capital. Mm-hmm. And grew up in, I wouldn't say the best of homes. It was chaotic. My parents went through a lot, and so I was involved in all that. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't necessarily have a father figure in my life after about the middle school age. And my mom and I were living in an apartment, and we had moved to DeWitt, which is a suburb of Lansing, Michigan. And I saw this patrol officer would come home at around dinner time he lived in this next apartment building. And so I now know what he was doing. He was going home for dinner at night when he could, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had struck up some conversations. And then as soon as I graduated from high school and I was 18, he said, hey, why don't you come on a ride along with me? I had no law enforcement background as far as family or anything like that. But I said, sure, I'd do it. It sounded like, a good time or what this would look like. And I remember that night specifically, I was just hooked. It wasn't any major calls, but it was moving along. It was pretty fast paced. I loved the camaraderie that I saw, the guys getting together, having coffee, whatever that might be, going to calls. And it was very enticing to me. So after that day, I knew I wanted to become a police officer. So I started on that path.
That's so cool. And you didn't have a crazy first ride-along story? It's pretty typical?
I really didn't. It was a couple. I specifically remember it was 2 drunk driving arrests and then a domestic call were probably the things that stood out. I'm sure there was other little calls, but those were the major ones, which obviously those are things that patrol officers deal with on a shift, on a daily basis when they show up at work. So But as an 18-year-old kid, like, man, this is so interesting, right? And seeing all the stuff that goes along with it. So it was great. And kind of a weird story, that officer, we've stayed in contact my entire career. And about 2 weeks ago, he just reached out to me again. He said, hey, I wanted to check in. And he's retired now. And it was just great connecting. So
that's really cool. I was telling you off camera that my dad is a retired law enforcement officer. And so I would sometimes when I went back would do ride-alongs. And there was one cop in the department who was like always just like, I don't know a better word than like a hard ass. Like he, just very like followed the rule book, never let people off. And he would pull my brother and I over if we were speeding. Like he was the guy that would write us a ticket, right? And we're like, can you just call our dad? Like, please. And I remember we were it was that time of year where the sticker color changes on your registration, on your tag. And they had a competition for who could find the most. And we had pulled this car over and I was riding along with him. And he was like, what do you think? Do we write the ticket? And I was like, I feel like we should just let her go. And he was so disappointed. He's like, I knew you were going to be soft on this.
That's
like,
hilarious. Yeah. Yep. You got those rule followers and I think especially new officer, you're like, yeah, every time. But I felt that as I matured, if you can learn to put yourself in that person's shoes, like, you want to offer some breaks when you can. Obviously there's times that you can't, but yeah.
He was a no breaks.
He was a no breaks type. Okay. I know those types as well.
Okay. So then when did you go through the academy? Like walk me through that process of you actually getting into a department.
So in Michigan at that time, most agencies wanted at least an associate's degree, if not a bachelor's, which I know is not the case at this time in our history of law enforcement. So I went to the community college, Lansing Community College, and you're taking classes that are preparing you for. You would then go into the academy, and once you're done with the academy, those credits would go towards an associate's degree.
Got it.
So that's what I did. And I was all set for graduation. At that time in law enforcement, there was not a lot of jobs like there are today. In fact, I remember putting in applications and they'd have 2 spots open and 600 people would be there to apply. And so the odds weren't great. So what we tried to do is find a part-time job right away because it would lock in our licensing. So in Michigan, every state's different. In Michigan, they have villages, cities, townships, and they're all these small police departments. And so they had a lot of their force are part-time. So those chiefs would come to the academy and recruit gals that didn't have jobs, right? So on Friday, I graduated from the academy, and on Saturday night was my first shift with this 1 square mile town.
What?
Yeah. And so I thought it was super cool. I remember, like, people laugh that have been in the profession. I walk in that night and I was going to work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And typically there's what's called a field training program, meaning a senior officer rides around with you and shows you what's going on.
Yeah.
I was met by the chief and the sergeant, who were the 2 full-time people. They gave me the set of keys and they said, don't wreck the car. Here's our phone number. Call us if you need us tonight. And I was on my own for 12 hours the first night. Back then, I thought it was super cool. As I progressed and then went to a very large agency and all that, I'm like, this was crazy. Like, I'm thankful I didn't break the law. I don't know, maybe I did at that time. You know what I'm saying? That you didn't have the training that you really need. So, but it was all good experiences.
Yeah. Smooth calls that first shift. You didn't have anything.
I don't, 1 square mile town, the biggest you can get is maybe a domestic, some barking dogs. So it wasn't a lot of action.
Yeah. We get a lot of the hit deer too.
Oh, for sure. Michigan is big time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Where they're like, I killed a deer, or sometimes the deer don't die.
That is true. And we have to take care of it. Yes.
Yeah. We wait in the car for those ones.
Yeah.
If you're on a ride along.
Yes, exactly.
So how was the experience for you? Like, you had seen this other cop. That's kind of what inspired you to go down that path. But once you were actually in the role, what did you like about it? What stood out to you?
Well, I definitely, if you go back and as I reflect now, and a lot of this has come through my Boulder Crest training and like what made me into the person that I was becoming and who I am today and all of that, right? And back then, because what went on in my childhood, I became very much a protector of my mom, not realizing it at the time. And then also because I saw some wrongs with, my dad and how things he had done, I had this natural ability to want to like help people. And back then I would have said, no, I'm doing it for the action. I want all this cool stuff. But if I reflect back, that's probably what drove me. And when I saw there's a profession that I could use what was already, inside of me, is probably what really attracted me. So yeah, wanted to help people. Now, as you progress throughout the career, I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs, right? The system that you believed in or you think will always be right, it's not. There are cracks, and we just have to do the best. And but always trying to put yourself in the person's shoes that may be calling you. Maybe you don't agree with what's going on. Obviously, a lot of times we didn't, but everyone has their own story. And if you can look at it that way, it can help you progress through your career a lot better.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. And you had an interesting experience too, because like you said, you start on a smaller department, really this 1 square mile, but then you moved into a larger department, then you moved into SWAT, correct?
I did.
So there's
for sure. So I didn't want to stay at the part-time job. I was making $6 an hour, which
it's hard to live on
crazy.
That.
Yeah. So I went to a full-time job with the sheriff's department between Grand Rapids and Lansing. I spent, I'm trying to think how long actually, 7-8 years there, and it was good. Still small department. We were rural, but the good part about that is those types of officers or that department with not a lot of resources within the agency, like you learn how to do fingerprints. You take the case from the beginning all the way to the end versus when I went to the very large agency, we had everybody to do all those things for us. We were just answering the initial call. So that was good. And in Michigan, I got my taste of tactical world. We were part of bringing on what's called a regional team to be able to handle the county, to assist the state police with a SWAT type call. We weren't at a level of like the team where I went to in Arizona, but we had to have, some more training. We had, special skills that, you needed to be able to handle situations that maybe the normal patrol officer, just because they haven't had the training or the equipment, can't do. So that's where I got my taste of that. But that was a great experience as well. And I promoted to sergeant there. I was running the team for a while. So all of it was great. It's just part of what made me who I was, throughout the rest of my career.
And then you decide you're going to Arizona? Like what led to that?
Yeah. So that's obviously huge move.
Yeah.
But I had always had the just intense desire. I was, my generation, we grew up on the show Cops when it first came out, right? So Saturday night, I can remember, my buddies and I, and we wouldn't, it's like, we're going to go out on Saturday night, but we can't go out until Cops is over. And it would come on at 8:00 Saturday night, so I grew up on that, and you saw a lot of big cities and departments all over the country. I had a desire, like, I really want to go big city. I want to work that type of area. And so 2007, which was kind of when this whole lateral from state to state was getting started. Now it's just, you can jump anywhere you want in the United States, and because they need people. I put in for Mesa, Arizona. So police department just outside of Phoenix. Totally different. It was going from where I was, I think about a 20-man department, to around 900 sworn officers. So a lot, and just a lot of big city work. So I was, offered a job, and I picked up with my family and moved across the country and began that career in a totally different environment.
I bet the weather was welcome, the change.
It was, it is. Well, that's funny. When you go out there, I started in October-ish, so the weather's starting to cool down. It's like, oh, this is great. You go through winter, then just wait till April comes and you're out on a call and it's 110 degrees. You're like, man, this really feels like I'm on the surface of the sun right now. So
baking in the oven.
Yes, for sure. Yep.
I had a similar thing moving from Ohio to Austin was very similar. I moved in January, and then by the time we got into summer, I was like, does this stays like this? And we were breaking records. It was like 100-degree days, like in March, and for the long haul. But
it is, but it's worth it. They're give and take anywhere you go. So
Did your family, was everybody handling that adjustment pretty well? Like, how was your experience once you were there?
So, it was obviously a little bit difficult that I made that move with my first wife and my 2 boys, which they were young. So they adjusted very well. And so that was good. But it's just trying to get into a new environment. I was 37 at that time. So a little bit different. Like, you're coming in, you have some law enforcement experience, but yet you don't want to wear that on your shoulder amongst the department, because I want to learn from them, right?
Yeah.
But then you're also starting with 21-year-old kids. So it's a totally different environment. But I was fortunate enough to get linked up with a squad that had, at this time, our SWAT team in Mesa was part-time. So I went to night shift in our main district, and I essentially did it because I knew there's a lot of SWAT guys there, and I knew I wanted to get to SWAT, but I wasn't telling anybody that because I didn't want to be that guy. Oh, he just wants to be a SWAT guy, because you have to be the good basic patrol officer first, right?
Yeah.
And so, but it made it easy, and I made some good friends. So yeah, I was very fortunate.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm glad you had a good experience overall. And then you had a particular call in 2021 that was kind of a turning point for you, correct? Where it just after that, it seems like you had to focus more on how is this actually impacting me? What am I carrying with me that that culture is not big on talking about the really hard things. You had said that. You tend to push them down. There isn't a lot of these conversations happening, or maybe not so much then. Trying to change that a little bit now, but just talk to me a little bit like through that time and maybe what you were even seeing in yourself that you're like, I'm not going to be able to keep going this way.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, I came up in a culture, which is still pretty prevalent today, that, we suck it up and we keep moving on. We believe that we have to be the problem solvers for everything because we're going to these calls every day. But when we don't understand what's happening, inside of us and how that training can affect us, then we feel, well, I have to fix myself. I can't ask for help because then it's a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And I was all a part of the culture, like, suck it up. I definitely got heavy into, it was a hard shift, so I got to have drinks when I get home. I feel like I have to numb myself, or, sleep was not going well, whatever it may be. And actually, prior to 2021, the tipping point would have been 2016 in Mesa. I'd been on the team for 6 years, but I promoted to sergeant, and we had to lateral back to or go back to the streets for at least a year before you can come back to a specialty unit, and which is a good policy. Yeah. So my very first day in the sergeant training program, we unfortunately had to go to a call that we ended up rescuing a toddler that was being sex trafficked. And I was the one that found her physically in the closet that day. And I had been a part of a ton of these types of operations where we were, as the SWAT team, we would set up sting operations and go after those types of suspects, right? So I was very well aware this stuff goes on in the world. My wife, my now wife, Emily, who is also a Mesa police officer, she was with Internet Crimes Against Children. I knew her work. So I knew it was taking place, but that was the first time that I actually was physically next to a victim, that I touched her. I saw what it had done to her, all of this. And so that was definitely a tipping point for me where I had, at this point on this call, I'd been through a divorce. I was living in an apartment, there's lots of stuff going on. And then, fell into heavier drinking. The calls weren't sitting with me the same. Like I would go to calls that I would say in the past, I was really good at shoving it down and compartmentalizing, acting like that didn't happen. I was now going to similar type calls, and I'd have to get away from the call and I would be just bawl.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And who am I going to tell? Because I was amongst the culture, especially within the SWAT team, like, we don't talk about this stuff. If you can't handle it, you shouldn't be doing this job. And so that was definitely a tipping point. And so for the next, 5.5 years, I was struggling immensely, but I couldn't tell anybody. People would see it. Now, definitely as we reflect back, my wife knew I was drinking too much. She saw things. She was encouraging me to go get help. And I'm like, hell no, I can't get help. Do you know what this will do to my career? Yeah. So I fell into that. And 2021, I had been back to the team now, and I was now a team leader. So I was running, I had my own unit, and, we went on, get a call one night, which was, unfortunately at times common across Mesa. It was a hostage rescue. And we went in there, and up to this point, we had been running hard. In that period of time, it was after, a bunch of the riots that had happened across the country. We didn't have enough people anymore. So we were working all the time. No days off. Yeah. And so we had no capacity. We weren't regulating ourselves. We were just work. And unfortunately on that call, we thought we were going to be able to go inside. Someone had escaped, and after already being shot and severely injured, we thought we were going to go in and be able to rescue everyone else. And unfortunately, when we got inside, we found everyone had been deceased, including the suspect. And it hit our team pretty hard. And so, walked away from there. They actually could see it. Our commanders could, so they took us offline for a little bit, but that was it. I had already struggled pretty hard with suicidal ideations. Not that I wanted to die, but I wanted to fix whatever I thought was wrong with me. Like, I can't keep doing this. And after that call, I knew, like, okay, I've got to get help. And I had a good lieutenant that she was like, Travis, you got to go get help. And then my wife, definitely, she was like, okay, this is it. Who cares what happens with your career? I need you to be okay. So yeah, I went in to for my first time, go to a therapist that was actually, I'd like to call him culturally competent. That's all she did, was work with first responders and veterans. And so she was good at developing a level of trust that I was like, okay, here you go. Are you ready for what I'm ready to dump on you? So
yeah. And then you did go through that process, which is a lot of hard work. It is very difficult.
Yeah, it is. I specifically, the therapy that I went through a lot to soften a lot of what I like to call hot spots was EMDR therapy.
Yeah.
So I did that. And it's hard work. It's incredibly hard work. I was at times doing 2 times a week, and but it was worth it because that softened everything. But during that process, I had been diagnosed with PTSD. And, even still in our culture, like when you get that diagnosis, you're like, what does this mean? Because as I was growing up, what I thought of PTSD was, I'd hear about that from Vietnam veterans, right? Yeah. That's the only thing I could associate. I'm like, that's not me. And so I didn't understand, but I now see, I looked at it more like, man, someone just really labeled me. And like, I guess, I'm going to have a diminished life now. This is what this is going to look like. And although the therapy really helped me, there was still something, man, I was still waking up and like, my wife and I, after I ended up retiring, we had moved to Montana. I had one of the most beautiful views that anyone has ever seen. I would wake up just angry at the world. Like, why am I still like this? I'm like, well, I guess this is as good as it gets. So
yeah, you're just feeling like I'm trying to check all the boxes, but this isn't. This is just what I'm going to live like. Was there another moment where something else clicked for you, or how did you kind of get yourself through that portion of time?
For sure. So when I ended up retiring, and no, I did not plan to do this. I was going to move to Montana, work construction, and just kind of exit from society. We had moved to a very small town of 900 people up in the mountains. And I was asked to come speak, and I ultimately ended up speaking about what had happened in my career in hopes of trying to help people. Like, hey, I don't want you to end up where I did. And so that was good. That was giving me an outlet, I guess, and I felt like, okay, at least I'm able to share my story and maybe help some people. But again, I was still like depressed. I was at that time, I was still probably drinking too much. Not probably, I was still drinking too much because I got to numb myself. It was still this coping mechanism. And so then this conversation happened with Joe Wood, and I was invited to come to the Struggle Well experience. And I'll be honest, when they invited me and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this, I thought, these guys aren't going to be able to tell me anything I don't already know. I've embraced trying to make myself better, and I'm done. I don't think I can get any better. And so that was a turning point, getting to the program, and just how the curriculum is set up. I love the fact that it was training, and it also put the onus on me. Like we can always think, oh, this person's got to help us, or this department doesn't, we don't have the right culture, it's their fault, or this call did this. But at the end of the day, we have to take personal responsibility. And this program, which, is Warrior PATHH, it gives you the resources like, hey, you can do this, but it's going to take a lot of hard work daily. You have to be in this mindset of consistency every single day, that you're going to change how you look at the world, view yourself, view people around you. And that was the turning point where I'm like, all right, like, I'm not done. Like, I can still thrive.
Yeah. And was Emily also retired at that point?
She did. So when I decided to retire, she left the profession, which is good. She had done throughout her career a lot of internet crimes against children, a lot of undercover work. And so, I mean, if she wanted to stay, I would have said, yeah, go ahead. But she was like, I'm perfectly good. I did 16 years. She started at Seattle PD and then came to Mesa. And so she was just ready to be done. I'm like, thankful. We just met with one of her old Seattle partners last night, and we were saying, like, we miss the work, I guess, at times, but we are happy that our time is done.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that because I had met another couple who were both first responders. They were both firefighters. And it was just interesting to hear their experience because they were both struggling, but then in different ways through their career. And then I was just curious if she was also seeing, it would just be a weird thing, right? To see your spouse, you have similar struggles in that, like, you have to go back on shift. And in some ways, like, being able to compress is sometimes helpful, right? Like being able to get back and to continue doing your work, but then you have to find a healthy way to release that. And I just wondered if she was seeing some of those own things in herself too, of like, oh wait, through you,
yeah,
right?
For sure, definitely. I mean, the profession does take its toll, right? There's so many benefits, but it does. I will tell you, she was always really good. She's an artist, so she was always very good. As soon as she got home, she would go through this whole process of like, even if when she was wearing civilian clothes, she would change out of those clothes, put on clothes that were just for home to kind of separate herself from what she just had to watch on a computer all day in these cases. And so she was always very good about that. And, but she also she was able to recognize what she saw in me. She's like, I know what I'm seeing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, no, I can't get help. It'll ruin my career. So
it's interesting to have, like, my dad had a little, I wouldn't call it like a tick, but a routine too, where he would come, and if we could tell if he'd had a really bad shift, he would shine his shoes. He would sit and just like kind of buff his shoes out. And he was also in the Army, so it was kind of this like ingrained habit of him. But then my brother and I knew like we need to like leave dad alone for a little bit. Like that's a bad one.
That's something that you picked up on as a child. Yeah, and that's good.
Yeah. I gotta find ways to get through it. But okay, so then you meet Joe Wood, you kind of go through this struggle well experience. Was that a week? Was it 5 days?
It was, yeah. Okay. So it was a week, just like Warrior PATHH is now 5 days. So we arrived on a Monday, went home on Friday. And it's so hard to articulate unless we always tell the students, if you're going to call home tonight, don't try to explain what's going on here because you're not going to be able to. Just tell them thank you for allowing, you to be here and focus on yourself. And it's so hard to articulate to come in there with myself as number 12, 11 other people from all over the country. And within 24 hours, we have connected in ways that I never did with some of my closest friends in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And I know what it is. It's all based on connection. The way the curriculum allows for this, unique thing to happen as soon as they arrive and have these conversations, you see like, okay, I'm not alone. Most of our students, they feel when they come in, because we're afraid to talk about it, nobody else feels like me. I must be the only one. Something's wrong with me. And then you get in there, oh, I didn't go to that call, but I know the way that you're feeling after that call, because I had this call and I feel the exact same way. So it builds this connection that is, just unbreakable at times.
Yeah, and I think there's something so powerful too about feeling seen by other people. Almost just like you said with your therapist, right? Like, I forget how you said it, the culturally
competent.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you're with other people, you don't have to, it's like when you've had a friend that even if you don't catch up all the time, they've known you a really long time, and you just know, like, I don't even have to explain this to you because you understand the foundation of like where I'm coming from. They understand your foundation, what you're
100%. We do want to be seen, right? And a lot of people come into the program, if not all of them, and they have a sense somewhere in their life, whether it's professionally or personally, they have not felt seen. So if they see this program and the other people, to include the guides and to include the entire staff of whatever location we're at, they see you, it's like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's special. So when you left there and you went back to Montana, and then you're not in Montana anymore.
Right.
So how'd you come
to... So crazy story. So again, when I was after program, I was initially linked up pretty quick time to like, hey, I'm going to become a guide for Struggle Well. And so started doing that training. And then I can't even tell you honestly how the conversations happen. They're like, hey, we have this new program called Struggle Well Experience, and 2025, we need some people to get involved in this. Would you be interested? I said, yeah. And I even was looking at a position here in Virginia because I love what Boulder Crest stood for. And so we had looked in this area, and then that didn't work out. But my wife, this location here in Bluemont, or the area in Virginia where we are, it's only about 4-hour drive from her family in Ohio.
Cool.
And she has not lived near home since she left for Seattle PD since she was 21. She's lived on the other side of the country. And so I could see the excitement and like, oh, we might be able to live near my parents. And then it didn't happen. And I said, well, nothing's holding us in Montana. And at this point, after all the stuff that I'd done with Boulder Crest, I felt like I wanted to integrate back into society. I went to Montana to exit society. And because of what I was learning about myself, I'm like, no, I'm not ready for that. I want to be a part of something. So we put our house up for sale, had a couple offers, found a house in Winchester, Virginia, not too far from here. And the next thing you know, we were moving in about 3 months. So that's how we ended up.
Gosh, how's your view?
It's not as good. I will tell you that. We have a nice lot. Yeah, but it's not, we see the pictures sometimes still of our house or even from the Zillow stuff. Emily had saved them. And so we'll look like, man, that was a great view. But there's no regrets. It is perfect for us to be here. We've seen her family so much back and forth since then. So it was all good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I was going to say, you guys are proof that Michigan and Ohio can sometimes work.
That is true. Very rarely, but it can work.
Yeah, as long as you don't talk about sports at all, you guys are good to go.
Exactly.
Well, how has it been now being a path guide and just fully really immersed in Boulder Crest? Like, what does it feel like now when you see other people going through the programs and kind of sitting across from who you were, maybe 10 years ago, less?
Yeah. So the first way I would describe it's a privilege, because as soon as a person decides to hit that submit button and apply, and it goes through a process, and within 24 hours, if they're assigned to us, we get to reach out to them and make that connection. From that point, you start to learn their story. They've already filled out applications, so you can get a brief picture of what they're struggling with. And then part of the process is we have to do an interview with them. And so it's first we tell about ourselves and we give our story, so they feel we're trying to create that connection, and then we hear where they came from and where they're at today. Why are they wanting to come to Warrior PATHH? What is enticing them to do this? And it's just amazing. It's emotional at times because it's a lot of heavy stuff, but yet again, still feel pretty privileged that we get to hear all this. And then after that happens and we accept them in the program, we get they're going to come to our team, and then we get the awesome opportunity to stay connected with them all the way up to program through different videos we send, phone calls, because we're honestly trying to build that connection from the moment of application through the time they come to program. Because if we can do that, then they arrive on that day one, you see them at the airport, and that's a really cool thing because you've been communicating, and then you see these faces and it's like, okay, here we go. And you can see, the thing I like to do is every time put yourself back in the shoes when you walked in that airport. You see them coming in, and especially the police officers are all like, they're trying to size each other up. Like, okay, can I trust this person? And you come and they're cold faces. And then so you try to break that ice and start talking, and you see that connection being built, and you see their defenses come down a little bit. And then that night we go into this really big thing that just really builds connection. And so to watch what happens from day one, and about the middle of the week, this shift happens, is when that shift starts to occur. And it's amazing to watch, because you not only hear it in their words, but you see physical features. Like you start to see people that they came in, weren't smiling. They show up in the morning, they're laughing. They almost feel like you see the weight has been lifted, because they're starting to first understand, like, okay, I'm not a bad person. I went through some things and these things happen. I just need to figure it out and come up with these new practices and use this training to look at things differently. And to watch that happen is awesome. And then by the end of the week, and we're sending them off, it's emotional too, because we're like, oh man. And, we're telling them like, hey, honestly, this was the easy part. Now the hard part's coming because you're going back home, right?
Yeah.
But we also, what is incredibly unique about our program is that we then stick with them for another 85 days. So we're doing calls and we're checking in with them. We are having daily contact with them through messaging, whatever that looks like. So they're going to face challenges getting back home, and then trying to figure out how to implement what we gave them in the training. We stick with them side by side. So it is an incredible experience. I mean, the passion you see in the guides and when we have these connections is second to none. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, it's so intentional. And I love that you're hitting on that too, because I think that's the reality. I think that's why Boulder Crest mission resonates with so many, especially veterans, first responders, is that in the regular person, we're all going to continue to go through struggle. It's not, it's just the way life is, right? We're going to have hard things happen to us. But it's what you can do to help yourself better prepare, to better be able to handle those hard things. And I think that's one of my last questions for you is if there have been certain practices or habits that you've implemented that, used to in your maybe unhealthier, pardon the phrase, times, it would be alcohol or really disassociating, disconnecting, maybe physically moving yourself into a more rural location. But now, what do you do to keep yourself centered when you do have those hard times?
No, so I'm glad you asked because I'm a big one about it takes consistent practices every day. So for instance, every day, Emily and I get up, alarm goes off around 5 a.m. during the week. Yeah, we're very much in bed about 8, get
That's
up at
great
5.
for you and Emily.
I know, it's great. I know a lot of people are like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's just a habit. But we get up and we, I make the coffee, we put on some, specific music and we sit down and we do our gratitude or set intention for the day. I have some other stuff where I state my I am statements, of who I am today, and then read some Stoicism, Stoic books, and then go over and just journal on that a little bit. And that's what my morning looks like. And it's a non-negotiable. I don't care if I'm traveling. I don't care if I'm at program. I don't care if I'm on vacation. It's just what we're going to do because we have seen the results. And a big thing we talk about is if you stay consistent for this, you can change how your brain is thinking. And now, all this science is showing about neuroplasticity and how you can rewire your brain. And I believe that's why these practices exist. And then it's been so interesting about meditation. I was always about no, meditation, are you kidding me? That's dumb. My mind's too busy. But now that has become more and more a part of my life to where I'm not going to meditate for an hour. Honestly, I don't see myself ever doing that. But doing these 10 to 15 minute increments just gives me a peace. My breathing exercise, we teach a different breathing exercise called 4-7-8 and just helping us okay, I know I'm going to an environment here that may cause me a little bit of stress. Let me regulate a little bit and prepare for that. And it's just, the peace that gives you through consistent practices is just amazing. And so that's one cool thing about all the guides, right? We don't just tell you what to do. We practice what we preach, right? This is why it works for us. We are just like you. We're just a few steps ahead of you in this post-traumatic growth journey. And none of us have a perfect life. We still struggle. We still, have days of man, I really don't want to do these things. But with these new intentions, I'll give you an instance. This morning, I woke up, had some text messages I could see were ready to go. The instinct is, I need to read those. But no, I don't know what's waiting for me in those text messages. I need to do my morning practices first, prepare my mind for what the day is going to have. And then now, okay, let's get to business. Let's do what we have to do. So, yeah.
Geez, you're really inspiring me. I don't think you'll get me fully on the 5 a.m. wake up call, but maybe 6:30.
Okay, that's a start.
Yeah,
that's a start.
I'll switch over. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's really special. And like you said, with the trust and connection, that's all just reinforcing that.
For sure.
Those behaviors. That's awesome.
Yeah. If we can build that trust and that connection, I think, our curriculum's amazing. The curriculum, they walk in there in the way that Ken and Josh and everybody built this it's awesome, right? Mm-hmm. The core of everything we do is connection. And that's where my passion is, just being able to connect with the students, connect with the people you work with, and just so you can create this process because you want them to eventually be sitting in my chair and being able to talk about, this is what I do every day to make things different. I can now thrive in life. I'm not stuck under a diagnosis or any of that. So it's all part of the process.
Exactly. And that is a perfect lead into the final thing I wanted to ask you, which is, as a former retired law enforcement officer, there's probably other people that are going to be watching this that are still in those careers, maybe still active military, active fire, whatever it is. What would you want them to hear if they are in that position where they feel I need to just keep toughening it out or whatever you want to call it and pushing through and I'll just continue to shove it down? What would you want them to hear from this?
Yeah, I appreciate that because the big thing is, I understand that we all can be upset at your agency that they don't provide this, they don't provide that. There are going to be things going on. I don't know how people grew up. I don't know what calls they went to. But at the end of the day, there's people out here that want to help you. Our program wants to help you. And in fact, even if you don't feel supported, you can do it even on the sly. For instance, I have a person coming to program in a couple of months, and he told me, he said, my agency doesn't support this, so I just put in for vacation. I'm not telling anyone where I go, and I'm going to take care of myself. That is leading yourself first, because it's not allowing your situation or what happened to you to dictate, like, I'm not going to take care of myself, right? It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. Yeah. Because for yourself, first and foremost, you have to take care of yourself, and for your loved ones, be that person that I know everyone wants to be. Sometimes, we get sideways or whatever, but just reach out. We want to help you. Go look for Struggle Well, look for Warrior PATHH, whatever it may be. Sign up for these programs, and it's okay. Like, there's so many out there like you, and I just want them to take that first step of asking for help.
Good. I hope they hear that and can do that. And I just want to say I'm so inspired by you and the work that you've done and are continuing to do. And just as you said, really living by not asking other people to do what you're not willing to first do yourself. So thank you for setting that example and for the hard work that you've put in for yourself, but also here at Boulder Crest to help other first responders, veterans, those that we serve. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.